So I am super late to the party here because your boy didn't watch this movie till like a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Don't quite remember. And somehow I went months without seeing a spoiler, however long this movie's been out. So I saw very little spoilers, I should say. So, you know, I actually got to enjoy the movie. But before we get into it, what is up, my dudes, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, what's up? I am one creative ginger, and in this house we have incoherent and emotional rants about fictional content, all while dressed in cosplay. So, like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Obviously, it starts off with, you know, everyone knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and like they did a really good job with like the media and social media going bonkers over this. Like it was fun. I actually really liked how ridiculous it was because it was pretty damn realistic, you know. But we see Matt Murdock actually shows up. And he's helping, you know, Peter, Aunt May, Ned, and MJ with all the legal bullshit that's just piled against them after the whole Mysterio thing. Murdock ends up, you know, helping them clear all that up. And I thought him catching the brick was really fun because, you know, he's blind and no one knows he's Daredevil, right? Which, by the way, I need to watch that show. But yeah, I like that he catches the brick and his excuse is just, I'm a really good lawyer. So, obviously their names are cleared, but some people believe that Mysterio is telling the truth and some don't, so it's this whole crazy thing. And so all three of them, you know, Peter, Ned, and MJ, they're trying to get into MIT and like all these other schools, you know, but they don't because of the whole Spider-Man thing, which at first I was like, what'd you expect, right? Like the whole controversy, obviously MIT's not gonna accept you no matter how smart you are. They're not gonna do that because of the whole Spider-Man thing. Like, come on. So, you know, they were kind of just setting themselves up for disaster there, I think. But, you know, it adds to the drama. And, of course, Peter feels bad about it because he's just like, this is my fault. So, you know, he obviously goes to talk to Doctor Strange. And he's like, how about you, like, go back in time to stop Mysterio from telling everyone? And, obviously, there's no more time stone because of the whole Infinity War Endgame thing going on, you know. No more time stone because they had to destroy it, right? So, there is a spell that Strange can do that will just make everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But of course, while he's doing the spell, Peter fucks it up by trying to change it multiple times. Of course, the spell gets all messed up and it starts destroying shit. And then Strange is able to contain it because, you know, if he doesn't, it'll just rip apart the multiverse, you know. Of course, Strange is like, oh, did you know, call admissions to see, you know, would they, like, reconsider, that kind of thing? And Peter's like, well, no, didn't know you could do that. And of course, Strange is like, God damn it, get out of here, go do that. Like, what are you doing? So, obviously, Peter goes to find the admissions lady, and she's stuck in traffic, so, you know, he's able to find the car, and he tries to talk to her, but then their conversation gets interrupted by none other than Doc Ock. So they end up fighting, and Peter ends up saving the lady, and he ends up hacking Doc Ock's robot arms, and, you know, in the process reveals his face, and then of course, Otto's just like, oh, you're not Peter Parker. I don't know who you are, right? But like, I don't know. I like how Peter just ends up having control over his arms the whole time, and he's just so pissed about it, but he can't do anything because, you know, the arms have control over Otto. Like, that's his whole problem, right? Obviously, the admissions lady is like, thank you, and she's like, okay, I'll go talk to MIT. You know, we'll reconsider your application along with your friends, and, you know, we'll see what happens, but you gotta stay out of trouble, you know. You can't do some weird shit, right? But Green Goblin actually makes a quick appearance before, you know, there's a portal that takes Peter and Otto away, and they end up in Strange's sanctuary, whatever it's called. I haven't watched Doctor Strange either, so yeah. And at this point, Strange has already found the lizard, and he's already, you know, in a holding cell, and they put Otto in a cell too, and Strange is like, okay, so here's what happened. We contained the spell, but some of these, like, multiverse visitors got through, so they're kind of around the city, and we gotta, you know, we gotta go find them so we can send them back, right? So MJ and Ed end up helping Peter track down the goblin, but they end up catching Electro and Sandman instead. Like, he was probably, like, the one I was least expecting, because I knew Otto and Electro were gonna show up, and the lizard too, and obviously the Green Goblin was gonna show up. Like, he's a very iconic Spider-Man villain, obviously, but yeah, I guess the Sandman was a surprise to me, especially since he helped him. He was helping Peter at first, so I was kind of like, huh, alright. So then, you know, they put those two in a cell, and then Aunt May calls Peter and tells him she found Green Goblin, except he's back to being Norman Osborn because of the whole split personality thing that he's got going on. But, like, yeah, so they're able to bring Osborn back to the holding cells, and Otto is just like, what is he doing here? He's supposed to be dead. You know? So it turns out, like, the spell brought all of these guys to this universe, like, right before they died, you know, in their respective movies. Except, well, I think the lizard survives because he gets cured. So, there's that. Yeah, so, like, they all have, like, a nice conversation. Like, the conversations that these guys have is so well done. I just loved this scene so much. Honestly, I love all the scenes where they just stand around and talk to each other. Yeah, honestly, they nailed it with the dialogue in this whole goddamn movie. Ugh, God, I loved it. So Strange wants to send all these dudes back because the spell that's all contained is not going to be contained forever. Peter's like, if we send them back, they're all just going to die, and they all know they're going to die at this point, so it's like, let's help them, especially because Aunt May suggested that. They're not bad dudes, they're all just kind of messed up. So, you know, obviously him and Strange fight, and they get into, like, the mirror dimension thing, and then Peter actually is able to trap Strange in there using geometry, which honestly I liked, because, yeah, he's smart. He's very smart. So then Peter and Aunt May actually take all the villains to Happy's apartment, where they're, you know, able to fix, where they're, well, attempting to fix everyone's issues, because there's, like, a whole Stark Industries contraption that they can do that, you know? So, Otto's the first to be cured, essentially. So they replace the chip that's, like, in the back of his neck that's giving the robot arms, like, control over him. But, at first, looks like it killed him, looks like it failed, but he's fine. Obviously, that was just for dramatic effect. And he's back to his old self, and he's fine. But, unfortunately, Green Goblin takes over, and he gets Electro to remove the whole thing that's, like, curing him, because this whole time he's got, like, a thing on his chest that's supposed to zap all the electricity powers out of him, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, then there's a whole fight, and everyone escapes, and unfortunately, May gets wounded by Goblin, and it looks like she's fine, but she ends up dying. So that was fun. Not really, but you know, yeah. God, I hate. I love it, but I hate it because the way they did it really made me think that she was gonna be fine. She was walking around, she's totally fine, and then she just, yeah, yeah. They knew how to get you. They knew how to lull you into a false sense of security. You're just like, she's gonna be fine. Nah. Nah. So, Meanwhile, during this whole thing, MJ and Ned are trying to find Peter because they're opening portals because they stole a ring from Strange after Peter stuck him in the mirror realm dimension thing, you know. So they're opening portals to see if they can find him. They end up finding the Andrew and Tobey Peters instead, not the Tom one. And whoo, again, the dialogue is just mwah, beautiful. I love it. God, they nail it with just talking about the multiverse. Especially with Andrew trying to prove he's Peter to MJ and her throwing the bread at him. It was great. But yeah, so obviously the four of them go to find Tom Peter. At this point, I'm just going to refer to all Peters as their actors' names so it's less confusing. So they go to find Tom sitting on the roof of, you know, their school, and Andrew and Tobey end up telling him, like, their stories of losing loved ones, because he just lost Aunt May in the worst possible way, like, God. And whew, that's a good scene too, like, they all just nailed it. Yeah, it was good, and it was sad, and it's just, mwah, beautiful. Ah, God. So obviously, since they're at their big fancy science school, they all, you know, work together in making cures for the remaining villains in the school lab. And ooh, them talking about, like, the differences and similarities between them all, like, oh, it's great. It's just, oh, it's so fun. So they end up luring all the villains to the Statue of Liberty, and while they're waiting, they have another conversation. It is so fun, because, yeah, it's so natural, like, how these characters talk to each other, because, you know, they're all from different universes, but, like, man, the way they talk to each other, it's just natural. It feels right. It doesn't feel like it's forced or anything. Like, they're all just, like, really chill about it. Like, oh, it's so great. That was a scene that did get spoiled for me. Part of it, I didn't see the whole one, but, like, definitely where they're just, when it's Tobey and Andrew talking to each other about it, like, I did get spoiled with that scene, but, like, oh, it's a good scene. I still loved watching it for a second time. So, obviously, the villains arrive, and Tobey's able to cure Sandman, and then Doc Ock comes out of nowhere, and it looks like, you know, he's gonna be a villain, but he ends up actually curing Electro, who, oh, thank God, he looks so much better than he did in the actual movie. Oh, it was so bad. I did not like that movie purely for how Jamie Foxx looked in that whole movie. Like, even before he was Electro, he looked awful. And then when he was Electro, he looked awful. It was bad. bad character design. I hated it, so I'm so glad that they fixed it in this movie. Thank you. And the lizard actually does, like, call attention to it, because he's just like, oh yeah, you look a lot better, because you used to look really stupid. And he was just like, yeah. Because he did. He looked awful in that movie. Ooh, and also, whenever they mention, like, because they mention it multiple times about how Electro got to be the way he is, because he falls into a tub of electric eels, and everyone's just like, oh, yep, that'll do it, yeah. They just totally brush it off, like, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. Even though it doesn't. Anyway, Otto's able to cure Electro, and Andrew's able to cure the lizard. Again. And there's actually a really fun conversation that Electro and Peter, his universe's Peter, have, and Electro's just like, oh man, I thought you were gonna be black, because, you know, you help all these, like, poor people and shit like that, and he's just like, oh god, I'm sorry. And he's like, you know, there's probably a black Spider-Man somewhere out there, and we know there is. That was so cute. But yeah, so obviously, Tom is out for blood, so he ends up fighting Green Goblin and almost kills his ass, but Tobey ends up stopping him, so, you know, you can see, because they don't want him to go down the route, because obviously Tobey was like, oh yeah, I went after the guy I thought killed Uncle Ben, and I didn't feel too good about that, so I don't want you going down that path. So it was like, oh yeah. But Tobey ends up getting stabbed by the Green Goblin, and Andrew's able to throw Tom the cure so they can cure the Green Goblin. And obviously Tobey's fine, and he's all like, oh yeah, I've been stabbed before, this is nothing. Right? During all this, Doctor Strange is able to free himself from the mirror dimension, and he attempts to stop the spell from letting in more multiverse visitors, because at this point the spell has gone, it's escaped. It's trying to tear the multiverse apart, right? So he's trying to contain that, but Peter has this idea, because, you know, obviously they're all trying to get through the multiverse, because the whole thing is like, you know, they're all the people who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man are trying to get through, right? So Peter asks Strange to redo the spell so that everyone just forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so everything can go back to normal. But that means everyone's gonna forget. Like, it's not like the first time where it was just like, oh, you know, let's make everyone forget except for these specific people, right? You know, no, they're gonna forget, and in the process just forget that, like, Peter Parker exists, you know? Yeah, so everyone's gonna forget. Strange is sad, and of course Ned and MJ are sad too, because they're like, we don't want to forget you, because that's fucked, you know? But, you know, they say goodbye, and then, you know, the spell takes effect, and it ends with Peter attempting to reintroduce himself to Ned and MJ, but, like, he can't. You know, it just ends with him, you know, in his new apartment, all alone, making himself a new suit, and, you know, that's how it ends. But of course, this is a Marvel movie, so it doesn't, because we have the end credits scene where we see Eddie talking to a bartender and trying to understand, like, who the Avengers are and, like, what's been going on, like, the whole, like, Endgame, Infinity War thing that happened. You know, he's trying to understand what the hell's going on. But of course, you know, Strange's spell ends up sending him and Venom back to their universe, but guess what they leave behind? A little piece of the symbiote. And, you know, that's how it is. Who knows what's gonna happen there. I want to say that the symbiote is Sleeper, mostly because he's the only spawn of Venom that does not want to eat people. The only problem with that theory is he does not spawn asexually like all the other symbiotes do, because there's like there's a whole comic where we see that he's actually born in like a labor type way. Like, it almost kills Eddie. Like, they have to physically separate Eddie and Venom so, like, Sleeper can be born. Yeah, I don't know. Sleeper seems like the most likely, but, like, honestly, I'd rather see him in a Venom movie, mostly because I want to see Eddie and Venom raise a little symbiote child together. Like, I'd rather see that rather than them just accidentally abandoning him in a totally different universe, you know, and not knowing he existed, right? But yeah, then again, it is the MCU, so maybe they made up a new symbiote. I'm not even sure if there's gonna be another Spider-Man movie. They might just leave it at that and be like, who knows what's gonna happen. I don't know, but yeah, it was nice that they decided, yeah, let's just cure these villains because they're not technically evil. They're just a little crazy, and we should help them, you know? Like, it was nice. I like that was the route they went. Honestly, my favorite part was just anyone talking to each other was just, it was so great. It gives you just the best dialogue. Like, I really liked, like, having the villains, like, reconcile with their Spider-Mans to a point. Like, again, like, Andrew and Electro talking on point, and then Tobey and Otto talking was very sweet. It was great. And, like, seeing and having the villains talk too, and then just Tobey, Andrew, and Tom all talking together. God, it's just, honestly, all the dialogue was just on point, gorgeous. Just, I loved it. And I loved Matt Murdock's little cameo at the beginning was really fun. And honestly, Eddie and Venom showing up. I mean, obviously, in the last Venom movie, we knew they were going to show up because of the whole end credits scene, right? But, like, oh. it was still fun to see them at the end because, yeah, they're just not really doing anything the entire movie. The way they just wrote this movie was so good. Honestly. And there was just, again, never a dull moment, even when they're talking. It's fun as hell. Like, I was just so engaged the entire movie. And this was a long movie. Ooh, but I was just into it the entire time. And I like how it was so similar to Into the Spider-Verse. But it was just like, you know, it was so good. You can't do this kind of storyline with any other characters. It's only doable with Spider-Man because he's just that character. He's got that vibe. Like, the whole thing, it's just anyone can be Spider-Man, you know. That was whole, like Stan Lee's whole thing about Spider-Man, like his design was purposeful, that anyone can see themselves as Spider-Man. Honestly, everything about this was just on point. The dialogue, just beautiful, and just the whole premise of this movie was just really nice to see, because yeah, it was just like out of the goodness of their hearts, they were just like, hey, let's actually try to help these guys instead of fighting them again, you know, because like, we all know the outcome. You know, they all end up dead, or in some ways, you know, cured, you know. So let's cure all of them, because it works. It works. You can cure them. It's just, it's nice. I like that. But yeah, so that's basically all I have to say about Spider-Man No Way Home. If you guys have any thoughts and feelings about this, share all that good shit in the comments down below. If you're interested in following me on other social media, I post art and cosplay related content on my Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, if you'd like to get weird with me. So if you like this video, why not like, subscribe, and smack that bell if you'd like to see more of my face every Saturday when I post a new video. And don't forget to stay sparkly, my dudes!